Hey there, and welcome to City View Online. I am so glad that you're spending your Sunday with us. And I hope that you had an amazing Thanksgiving last week with your friends, your family around your table, eating some amazing food and having some good conversation. And I hope that it was time that you will remember as it was well shared together. We are going to be ringing in the Christmas season starting tomorrow. We're going to be right here at 3 o'clock decorating the sanctuary, outside, our kids' spaces, all of that. It's going to be so much fun. So we'll be here from 3 until we get done. We've got a lot to do, so come on over after work. We'll have some food for you as well. We'll be playing some loud Christmas music, singing really badly, but having an amazing time. So I hope that you can join us. And then next Sunday, December 4th, is our annual Christmas party, which I am so excited about. We'll be lighting our Christmas tree. We'll have pictures with Santa. We'll also have our famous hot cocoa that we serve at the Santee tree lighting that everybody raves about. And our kids will also be able to decorate cookies, and we'll have carols, so many things. And this is an incredible opportunity for you to invite friends and family to be a part of that with you. And then parents, for you on December 9th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., we're giving you a free date night out. So whether you go shopping, go see a movie, go get some dinner together, whatever you choose to do, drop your kids off right here at 6 o'clock and pick them up by 9. We hope that you have an incredible time together as a couple, because we know that those moments are few and far between. So that is our gift to you this Christmas season. And then on the 11th, come watch our incredible kiddos sing their Christmas songs at the 8:30 and 10 a.m. service. Another opportunity for you to invite friends and family to come and watch their sweet faces. And believe me, I laugh every single time because it's truly entertaining. So I hope that you can hang out with us on that as well. So many things happening this Christmas season that we are excited about. And one of the bigger things is our Christmas offering that we take up every year. So thank you so much last year for your generosity. We actually exceeded our goal of $20,000. And so this year, we've got another $20,000 goal that we're trying to meet just to support our community, some local efforts, and to help reach our next generation for Jesus. So we can't wait to unpack more of those details with you, but you can give online at cityviewcc.com/give, and we cannot wait to see how your generosity makes a difference. Enjoy some incredible worship in the message as we continue our Waiting for When series.
There is a shadow that has ever overcome your light. There is no rival that could ever stand against your might. You've always been with us. Every battle you've already won. Yes, we've already won. No weapon that has ever left a mark on you. There is no army with the power to conquer truth. You've always been with us, yes. Every battle you've already won. Yes, we've already won. Show me one mountain he can't move. He's the God of the breakthrough. Anything is possible. Come on, let's sing. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me what else he can't bar. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Is possible. There is a kingdom that's advancing at the speed of light, and in his kingdom every dead thing is bound to rise. Oh God of Redeemer, he is faithful to revive. Oh, he will revive. Come on, sing it out. Show me one thing he can do. Show me a mountain he can move. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. We believe in you, Lord. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me what else he can't bar. He will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance, I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment and break every chain. Come on. All of my fears I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance, I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment and break every chain. All of my fears I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance, I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment. Show me one thing he can do. Show me a mountain he can move. He's a God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. We believe in you, Jesus. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me what else he came for. He's a God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. It's possible. All things are possible with you, Jesus. We believe in you, Lord. Come on and give him a shout of praise.
Well, welcome to church. So glad that you are here with us. Hey, it has been an incredible series on David, and we have talked about so many stories, but we've missed so many. But my favorite part is that we've been able to look at some of the familiar moments in David's life with a brand new perspective as we've talked about this waiting for when. And maybe for some of you, you feel like it's finally time for Christmas decorations. You've made it through Thanksgiving. That was your win. That was your finish line that you're getting to. But honestly, in our lives, as we've said for so many weeks now, we're all waiting for that breakthrough moment, for that opportunity, for that clarity on what's next. And as we're in those waiting seasons, how we wait really matters. And we've seen that in the life of David. But today, I want to talk to you about an important question that we all have to navigate. And the question is this: how far will you go? Whether you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 60s, your 80s, it's a question that we all have to wrestle with. It's a question about legacy. And many times for most of us, especially those of us who are in our 30s and our 40s, it's like, man, I have so many years ahead of me. I'm just trying to keep my head on straight. The idea of legacy it's just not even on the radar. But the reality is, what we do now in the present is making deposits for the future life that we hope to have. We're making deposits in our legacy more than what we're just going to leave behind once we're gone. But the legacy of who we are now and the impact that we're having now. How you wait is leaving a legacy. How you live is making an impact. And so we're going to look at David's life and the impact that had on him and the legacy that he left. But as we jump into it, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever gone too far? Like, have you ever gone so far past what you really should have done that made logical sense for something that you desperately wanted? Have you ever had one of those moments? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, hop in the car, drive 45 minutes in 5 o'clock traffic on the 8 just so that you can get that fresh slice of Roman-style pizza and limoncello gelato that was hand-spun by an Italian. You know what I'm saying, right? Okay, maybe that's just me. But maybe for you in your life, it was a relationship that you went too far, you sacrificed too much, you You went too far past what you should have gone. Or maybe for you, it was a dream job, an opportunity that came on the map, but it meant that you would have to drive so far and deal with the commute that was just absolutely brutal. And the more you thought about it, it's like, yeah, man, that's a bit far. Like that's a little too much. That's outside of what I'm willing to do. Maybe it was a long distance relationship for you that you did everything in your power to make it work, but it was such a struggle. Maybe it was a friendship that was that way. We've all had those moments where we just went too far and we ask ourselves, how far am I willing to go with this? Like, how far am I willing to push this or pursue this or continue doing this? How far will I go? It's a question that we navigate through the life of David. For me, one of my how far would you go moments actually happened in 7th grade. In 7th grade, I had a major crush on a girl from 4th grade to 7th grade. Her name was Katie Del Giorno. Apparently, her grandpa had invented Del Giorno frozen pizzas or something like that. I don't really know if that was true, but I had a major crush. I was in puppy love, right? I knew she was the one for me in 5th grade. Right? It was just this weird thing. And so finally, after years of having this crush, we're in 7th grade. We're at the beginning of the year. It is time. This is the moment that I'm going to tell her about my feelings. But me being the extra person that I am, I couldn't just simply go and tell her, hey, I like you. I've liked you for the last couple years. No, little Danny decided that he was going to write a 7-page poem declaring and professing my love for this poor girl. And I poured everything I had into it, and I gave it to her, and I was watching as she read it page after page. My heart is pounding. I'm just waiting for their response. I just know it's going to be a beautiful moment. And she looks up from the pages and she goes, I thought we were just friends. This is really sweet, but maybe you should save it for your future girlfriend. And I was crushed. In a moment, I was like, save it for my next girlfriend. I looked up every word in the dictionary that rhymes with Katie. I don't think that's really going to work out very well in the next relationship. I went too far. I did too much. It was really, really extra. I blame my mom. It's totally my mom's fault. She raised me watching these black and white films with Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn. And you just had to make it a scene, didn't you, Danny? Poor little 6th grade Danny. He didn't know what he was doing. But we've seen this same exact characteristic in David's story. David always did the most. He always went too far. He always pushed it. He was filled with passion and he was filled with purpose. And that propensity in his life hurt him in the episode with Bathsheba. But the reality is, for the majority of his life, his focus, his heart was passionately pursuing someone else. And this is the truth that we understand about these strengths in our lives. Look at this note on your screen. Every strength God has given us has a shadow side. You have the opportunity to overuse a strength, like using your communication gift to write a 7-page poem in the 7th grade. It's just too much. Maybe for you, you have the ability to win people over, to network, to connect with people. Everybody in the room just happens to look at you, and that's a beautiful gift from God. But you can overuse a strength. That shadow side reared its ugly head with Bathsheba, but the positive side is David's passionate pursuit of God, his passionate relationship with God. You see, as King David got back on track and he got his head straight, his heart was desperate to have the Ark of the Covenant back in Jerusalem. The Ark of the Covenant, it represented the presence of God. They would carry it into battle as a sign of God's presence, God's power. Where the Ark of the Covenant went, God's power showed up. And David desperately wanted it back in the city. It had been gone from Jerusalem for decades, and he wanted it back in its rightful place, in the center of Israel. For decades, Indiana Jones was looking for the Ark of the Covenant, but David knew exactly where it was. And he couldn't take it anymore, and he was ready to get it. But in his haste and his passion, he didn't consult God about how to move the Ark of the Covenant. He didn't refer to the Torah and the way that God had moved the Ark through the people of Israel over generations and generations. David just got really excited and really passionate, and he did his own thing. And unfortunately, the mission failed and a man died because of it. But David couldn't let it go. In 2 Samuel 6, it says this: Then King David was told, "The Lord has blessed Obed-Edom's household and everything he has because of the Ark of God," the Ark of the Covenant. So David went there, and he brought the Ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with a great celebration. After the men who were carrying the Ark of the Lord had gone 6 steps, David sacrificed a bull and a fattened calf. And David danced before the Lord with all his might, wearing a priestly garment. Once David understood what the Lord required to move the ark, he obeyed it, and the mission was successful. But I want you to notice something that maybe you haven't seen. Maybe you heard this story in Sunday school about David dancing before the Lord. But this little note here that after every 6 steps, they made a sacrifice to the Lord and they worshiped him. The Ark of the Covenant was about 9 miles outside of the city. Some scholars estimate that it was about 30,000 steps away, meaning that over 5,000 sacrifices were presented to God in an effort to move the ark from one place to another. Sacrifice after sacrifice, a line of blood and charred wood, and symbolic of the sacrifice it meant and what it took to have the presence of God in Jerusalem. And the challenge for you and I is, how far would you go for the presence of God to be in the center of your life? How far would you go for the presence of God to be at the center of your home, center of your relationships? You see, we don't have to make thousands of sacrifices like the Israelites did in the Old Testament. You see, we're past that because of Jesus. But I wonder if there's this lack of reverence for the presence of God. I wonder if in our lives we've lost the value of what being connected to God actually means. I wonder if for some of us it's lost its value because it was given to us so freely. You see, a lot of times I think we let God count the cost, but we rarely do. God knows what it cost him in order for us to be in right standing with him. But I think many times it's rare for us to actually count the cost. At the first sign of discomfort, we run. At the first sign of things not going our way, we give up. We walk away. We disconnect. And for David, this was a crazy thing. But it also reminds me of Jesus with the rich young ruler. Mark recounts the story this way in Mark 10:17. It says, as Jesus started on his way, a man came running up to him, kneeling down in front of him. He cried, "Good teacher, what one thing am I required to do to gain eternal life?" Jesus responded, "You already know the commandments. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not give false testimony, do not cheat, and honor your father and mother." The man said to Jesus, "Teacher, I have carefully obeyed these laws since my youth." Jesus fixed his gaze upon the man. I imagine inspecting his heart, and with tender love, he said, "Yet there's still one thing in you lacking. Go, sell all that you have and give the money to the poor. Then all of your treasure will be in heaven. After you've done this, come back and walk with me." Completely shocked by Jesus' answer, he turned away and he walked away very sad, for he was extremely rich. And I think so many times we make this about money and possessions, but I think the point of the story was the only thing that you can worship that will satisfy is Jesus. Jesus was making it abundantly clear. Hey, bro, you've done a lot of good things. You're going through all the motions. You're obeying the rules. But a relationship requires that I sit on the throne of your heart, that I sit at the center of your attention, that I am the thing that you have the most affection for. And the man walked away. As you look at the original language, he walked away and grieved because he couldn't give Jesus what he asked. You see, our walk with Jesus should and will cost us something. Somewhere along the way, we've lost sight of that. And the truth is that we rarely value something that doesn't cost us something. If someone gives you a free gift for a while, it's like, oh, there's some sentimental value there. And that means a lot. Thank you so much. But eventually, because you didn't do anything to earn it, it's just a free gift. It starts to lose some of its value. But what about those things in your life that you've worked hard for? You worked overtime for. You ate ramen noodles and beans and rice for months so that you can save up to buy that first car, that first condo, that engagement ring. Those things that you have sacrificed for, man, they hold their value for a lot longer than something that was freely given. And I just wonder if we've lost the value of God's presence in our life. Have we lost sight of how incredibly special it is that the God of the universe wants to be in our lives? You see, David knew this really clearly. Later in the story, when he was going to make a sacrifice to the Lord, and he was at someone else's house, he was praying and pleading for God to heal his people. The man's home that he was going to, the threshing floor that he was at, he said, "Man, David, you're the king. I have an ox over here. You do whatever you need. I'll give you everything that you need for the sacrifice." And David said this in 2 Samuel 24. He says, No. I insist on buying it, for I will not present burnt offerings to the Lord my God that have cost me nothing. We have to ask ourselves, what would I surrender? What would I change? What would I acknowledge in order to be connected to God? What would I change? What would I give up? What would I do different? What would I acknowledge within my own self? Peel back the curtain and say, "Hey, God, this is what's really going on. I know you know it, but I'm acknowledging it before you." What would you do to be in the presence of God? Or does it just not matter all that much to you? David sacrificed over and over and over again. Every sacrifice assigned to the people. This is how valuable the presence of God being in the center of our homes is. I just wonder what would look different in our homes if we felt that same passion about the presence of God that we have access to without having to burn sacrifices and kill animals, that we can simply humble ourselves and surrender before a heavenly God and say, "Hey, I'm here. Would you meet me?" How different would your life look if you were that passionately pursuing the presence of God? We have to ask ourselves, are we being honest about those things that are impacting our connection with God? Are there things in your life that are contributing to your disconnect? That are contributing to you not being on the same page with God? Because the reality is you can't depend on someone else to keep you connected. David saw this firsthand. As the story continues, so David and all the people of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouts of joy and blowing of ram's horns. But as the ark of the Lord entered the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked down from her window. When she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she was filled with contempt for him. They brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside the special tent David had prepared for it, and David sacrificed burnt offerings again and peace offerings to the Lord. And when David returned home to bless his own family, Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet him. She said in disgust, "How distinguished the king of Israel looked today, shamelessly exposing himself to the servant girls like any vulgar person might do." David retorted to Michal, "I was dancing before the Lord who chose me above your father and all his family." Ouch. He appointed me as the leader of Israel, the people of the Lord, so I celebrate before the Lord. Yes, and I am willing to look even more foolish than this, even to be humiliated in my own eyes. But those servant girls you mentioned will indeed think I am distinguished. You see, Michal was more focused on looking the part than actually being the part. A king was supposed to look a certain way, and David said, "Man, I'm not into that." She was reprimanding David's worship of God, but David understood something that she would never. What some call embarrassing, God calls empowered. And family, listen, you may not have faced it yet, but the day is coming when you start to hear things like, you believe in that Jesus stuff? You really, you go to church? Don't you know how corrupt of an organization that is? Seriously, you know that Christianity is just a pretty way of saying, hatred and bigotry and, being small-minded. How embarrassing that you actually believe that stuff. This is coming. You can see it online already. But in our lives, we're going to face a point where the world around us says, it's embarrassing that you believe in an invisible God. It's embarrassing that you're committing your life to some guy in history who's dead and long gone. This doesn't make any sense. Why are you committing your life to this person? But God saw this coming. And he encouraged Paul to write this encouragement to us in 1 Corinthians 1. Paul says, "Brothers and sisters, consider who you were when God called you to salvation. Not many of you were wise scholars by human standards, nor were many of you in positions of power. Not many of you were considered the elite when you answered God's call. But God chose those whom the world considered foolish to shame those who think they are wise. And God chose the puny and the powerless to shame the high and mighty. He chose the lowly, the laughable in the world's eyes, nobodies, so that he would shame the somebodies. For he chose what is regarded as insignificant in order to supersede what is regarded as prominent, so that there would be no place for prideful boasting in God's presence. For it is not from man that we draw our life, but from God, as we're being joined to Jesus, the Anointed One. And now he is our God-given wisdom, our virtue, our holiness, and our redemption." See, Michal got caught up in the image of a king, but God made it clear from the beginning of David's story, I'm not impressed by the things that impress you. He told Samuel, stop looking on the outside. I don't look at what's on the outside. I look at the heart. And that's what set David apart. You see, the challenge is that you and we're using something or someone as the mirror of our lives. We're using something or someone to determine, a mirror to determine our feelings of adequacy, our feelings of validation, our feelings of worth, our feelings of success. But the truth is, the mirror that we rely on the most eventually becomes the only voice that matters. So who's your mirror? David's mirror was not the opinion of others. David's mirror was the opinion of God. And even when his own wife says, "How embarrassing you look today," David said, "Bro, I'm not worried about you. I'm not worried about them. I was dancing before my Lord. I was dancing before my Savior. In his eyes, I am empowered, not embarrassed." This is why David wanted the presence of God to be readily accessible, to be at the center of the kingdom as a sign to the world that our city, our homes, our families, our lives are built on a connection with the presence of God. This was a significant moment for David. But why should it be a significant moment for you and I? It's significant because you and I have a legacy to leave for those in our circle of influence, the people who come across our path on an everyday basis. And the question that you and I have to wrestle with is, will we leave a legacy of faith or a legacy of self-reliance? Will we leave a legacy of faith, this desperate need for the presence of God to be in our lives? Or will our legacy be filled with stories of he pulled himself up by his bootstraps and he worked hard and he was self-reliant and no one could tell him no, and oh yeah, he went to church? Or will the stories of your life, the stories of how you're living right now in this moment be, yeah, he worked hard. Yeah, he gave everything. He loved well, but the thing that mattered most to him was his relationship with Jesus. Yeah, she was an incredible mom. She was an incredible friend. She made a massive difference in my life, but she found her worth, she found her purpose, she found her value in her relationship and her connection with God. What is our legacy going to be? I want to give you one last clue on why this is so significant. And it's going to go somewhere. It's going to build on itself here for a second in the couple minutes that we have left. You see, in David's life, after he had passed away, actually 50 years after David died, I want you to listen to how God responded to one of David's descendants who was ruling. And he was not living for God. He was so far outside of what God wanted for the kingdom. But I want you to listen to how God responded 50 years after David was gone. 1 Kings 15, it says, "He committed the same sins as his father before him, and he was not faithful to the Lord his God as his ancestor David had been. But for David's sake, the Lord his God allowed his descendants to continue ruling, shining like a lamp, and he gave Abijam a son to rule after him in Jerusalem. For David had done what was pleasing in the Lord's sight and had obeyed the Lord's commands throughout his life, except in the affair concerning Uriah the Hittite." God's not expecting perfection. But it continues on. 125 years after David's death. 2 Kings 8. "But Jehoram followed the example of the kings of Israel and was as wicked as King Ahab, for he had married one of Ahab's daughters. So Jehoram did what was evil in the Lord's sight, but the Lord did not want to destroy Judah, for he had promised his servant David that his descendants would continue to rule, shining like a lamp forever." 2 Kings 19, 250 years after David was dead. It reads, the king will return to his own country by the same road on which he came. He will not enter this city, says the Lord. For my own honor and for the sake of my servant David, I will defend this city and protect it. For more than 250 years, God pointed to the faithfulness of David for why he withheld his punishment. For 250 years, God said, man, there was this guy named David, and I made a promise to him, and I had a connection with him. And because of his relationship with me, because of the legacy that he leaves, because of the impact of him, I will protect you. I will continue that blessing onto your life. And the question for you and I, it leaves us with this powerful question: whose future is being impacted by your faithfulness today? Whose future is being changed because of your faithfulness in this moment? Your faithfulness in this waiting. Your faithfulness in this season. Your desperation for a connection with God. To be in his presence. To know him and to love him. Whose future is being impacted because of your relationship with God right now? For some of you, you're blazing a brand new trail for your family. You're creating a brand new legacy, a legacy that's not connected to addiction, a legacy that's not connected to relationships and affairs and broken hearts. And it's connected to God. It's connected to a hunger for his presence, a willingness to sacrifice some temporary discomfort in order for a long-term legacy of a relationship with him. Man, as we go into this holiday season, my heart is just burning that our people would be so passionate about being in the presence of God, that we would be desperate to sit at his feet and hear his voice speak into our lives. That as we navigate the waiting seasons, as we sit in those waiting rooms, as we wait for a door to open, as we hope for God to show up in the way that we hope he will, but understanding that he's going to do his will and his plan, and his way is so much better than ours. But in those waitings, would we live with this hunger and this passion like David did for the presence of God? And the beauty of God is that it's not just for us, but it's leaving a legacy and an impact for those still to come. Let's pray. Father God, I pray in this moment that you would just meet your children right where they are in this moment. God, that your presence would just fill the room where they're watching this. As they watch it on their phones or their tablets, on the TV, God, that they would experience your presence in such a real and a powerful way. God, I pray that we would have a desperation for you, a hunger for you, a willingness to go too far to be in your presence, to sacrifice, to surrender, understanding that your presence is so valuable. It's so important. So God, in this season, as we gear up for the busyness and the chaos and the craziness, would you help us live with a sensitivity to feel you, to hear you, and to know you? Pray all of this in Jesus' name.